Hey, so rapidly install on your Electrum Remnants. Pretty much the last install for me for this year. So this is installed with Proffie v3.9 with a custom removable chassis. So on this conversion, we kept the functionality for the touch buttons of the switch plate, both the main button as well as the auxiliary, as well as the three sets of LEDs. So there's a pair of red LEDs, blue, and green. So to access the internals, unlike most hilts which are threaded at the pommel, this is actually held in with a retention screw right there. And these use imperial measurements for the set screws. So I'm using a 564 Allen key. So once you have the set screw removed, you just slide it out. Here's your chassis. And then to access it, just carefully pull it out. So here's your glitter purple custom removable chassis. It may look a little bit blue on camera. It's just kind of like the tint of purple that they use for this filament. So here's your Proffie v3.9 up there. It's currently at a 20-degree angle. That makes it easier to access the SD card down there, as well as the USB port without needing an angled adapter. In the config, I already have that angle accounted for. There's your chassis connector, which interfaces with the NeoPixel connector through this section. We have our kill switch over here. Currently it's off, and then the on position would be if you toggle it up. Something new I've been trying on my chassis are onboard tactile switches. That way you can actually operate the chassis without needing it in the saber. It's helpful if you accidentally ignite the saber with gesture controls and you want to just turn it off. You can just hit the tactile switch. Over here we have our battery holder, marked negative over there, and then positive over there. Got the spring side for the negative side, and the relatively flatter side, the button top side for the button top. Back here we have two sets of connectors. So unlike the Even Razor on these type of conversions, so far for the Remnant as well as the Aurora, I use these kind of modular contacts. So there's a set of 4 pole connectors and a 3 pole connector. These interface with the LEDs on the switch plate. And then these 3 interface with the touch buttons on the switch plate. And then down here we have our 28mm bass speaker. So let's put a battery in here. Kind of have a beat up Keep Power 18650 battery I use for testing. So when I'm inserting the battery, I like to do negative first because I do design my chassis so that there's a little lip there. It's a little bit more pronounced just because of the change in diameters in this section. So to insert it, I do negative first. One thing to note is that because this chassis is a little bit snug, when I insert the battery, I try to make sure that there aren't any protruding areas around the diameter of the battery. And if there are, I face that down so that it doesn't catch onto the hilts. So sliding that in, I'm just gonna quickly check to make sure that it clears the hilts. Yep, it does. So now the battery is in, just flip the kill switch on. So I have actually reduced the volume down to 50% because it is kind of late here as I'm doing this demo. So when you're handling the chassis, when it's on, be careful with touching these contacts because they are wired up for touch controls after they're kind of interfaced with a switch plate. So if you accidentally hit it, you can't actually turn on the saber. So when you're inserting the chassis, in there, you probably can't see, but there's basically a printed block for the other ends of these connectors, which basically create a guide for the chassis. So when you're inserting it, make sure that this rail lines up with the control box, or just lines up with this cutout over here. So slide it in, rotate it to kind of make sure that it's in that guide, and just carefully push it in. Maybe a little bit snug. So once it's about here, it's fully inserted and you can screw in the pommel. So just press down on the pommel and then tighten this head screw there. So I have swing on configured, as well as twist off. You can also turn the saber on with the touch control. So up here currently is mapped to the main button. And this button down here is the auxiliary. We have an illuminated NeoPixel connector up there that I designed, and also blade detection setup. So let's put a blade in here. So for this hilt, your blade retention is this top set screw over there. And again, it uses a 564 Allen key. That one probably can't see, there we go. So inserting the blade all the way in and tightening that down. So I've checked I've checked for false clashes as well as the clash sensitivity. Got smooth one, accent smooth. Blaster blocks.
If you will not turn to the dark side, perhaps.
So this was the font that was previously giving us a few issues with false clashes. Currently it's at 50% volume, but I've already tested a few times on 100% volume to make sure that there are no kind of false flashes on ignition.
Rey Skywalker.
I've also tested swinging it around a few times with a full-length blade, and there aren't any weird blade disconnection issues.
My right. No more. Second sister.
White.
So I've combined the old fonts that you have as well as the newer fonts that you bought from Jadalorian for the Even Razor. So both sets of fonts are loaded on here now.
Ignition.
It's a pretty long tree on there.
Ancient warriors would rub themselves with the blood of their kin.
Oh, the Jedi.
So there you go. I'm gonna finish setting up the rest of the config, get this packed and sent to you as soon as possible. So thank you so much for being patient on this build. I know it's been a little bit of a wait due to the other builds in the backlog, but it's finally done and it's hopefully gonna arrive back to you before the new year. So once again, thank you so much for letting me work on this, and may the force be with you.